Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through all that global intel, the reports, the news, and basically give you the key takeaways, the knowledge nuggets you actually need. It's your shortcut to, well, really understanding what's going on.
And this week, it's fascinating how the sources sort of connect things you wouldn't expect. We're seeing this theme of hidden fragility, in politics, history, even our environment.
Fragility.
Yeah.
Okay, like what specifically?
Well, we've got a live situation with a Category 5 hurricane hitting Jamaica. Then there's this amazing correction to Mayan history, like 1,400 years back, and a really shocking new link between, believe it or not, coastal pollution and neurotoxins.
Wow, okay. That's quite a spread. So if you're listening in, the learner wanting that curated view, wanting to know why this stuff matters, stick around. We're going to connect those dots.
Let's maybe start with global power shifts. There's Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope, remember? His first foreign trip is coming up late November.
Right, November 27th to December 2nd. And that itinerary speaks volumes, doesn't it? First big stop, Beirut.
Beirut, yeah. And specifically, he's praying at the site of the 2020 port blast.
The one that killed over 200 people. That was just devastating.
Utterly. And everyone knew pretty much it was down to government negligence. It just threw fuel on the fire of the country's economic and political crisis.
And the accountability aspect?
Yeah.
Has anyone actually faced justice for that? 5 years on?
That's the thing. 0 officials convicted. The investigation just keeps stalling. Yeah.
So him going there, praying at that site, it's more than just sympathy, isn't it? It feels like a statement.
Oh, absolutely. It's a quiet but very powerful push for accountability, for justice, really, in a place where people feel completely let down by their leaders.
Okay. And then he goes to Turkey.
Then Turkey, yes, but for a totally different reason. It's the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea.
Christianity's first big ecumenical council. Okay, so he's praying near the old basilica excavations in Iznik, ancient Nicaea.
Exactly. A major sort of nod to the Orthodox world, ecumenical outreach.
But with these trips, what's not on the itinerary is often just as important, right?
Always. And there are 2 really notable omissions here.
Okay, what are they?
First, he's skipping Lebanon south. Remember, it got hit hard in last year's Israel-Hezbollah conflict.
Right, affecting both Shiite and Christian communities there. They asked for a visit.
They did, but nope, not happening. And the second omission, this one's arguably bigger, geopolitically speaking.
Let me guess. Hagia Sophia?
You got it. He's not visiting the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul.
Which President Erdogan controversially turned back into a mosque from a museum back in 2020. I remember Pope Francis wasn't happy.
Deeply pained was the phrase used. It was seen as a real setback for interfaith dialogue, historical respect. So Leo XIV is skipping it.
And visiting the nearby Blue Mosque instead.
Precisely. It maintains that quiet diplomatic protest. It signals that the Vatican's stance on the Hagia Sophia issue hasn't changed. It definitely puts a certain frame around relations with Erdogan's government.
Okay, sticking with power and politics. Let's jump over to West Africa. Ivory Coast. Big election news there.
Yeah, Alassane Ouattara, who's 83 now, won a 4th term. And not just one, it was a landslide. Almost 90% of the vote.
90%. Wow. He's been in charge since 2011, and now he'll lead the world's biggest cocoa producer until 2030.
Right. And look, his time has seen pretty high economic growth. You can't deny that. But there are always buts.
Accusations of cronyism. Clamping down on dissent.
Exactly. And crucially, the election itself wasn't exactly a level playing field. Key opposition figures, Laurent Gbagbo to Jane Thiam, barred from running.
So that's the backdrop to the landslide.
That's the critical context, yeah. But here's the really strange part, the paradox that observers noted. The turnout was low.
How low?
Around 50% overall, according to the Electoral Commission, especially low in cities. But because of that low turnout, it ended up being the most peaceful election they've had in years.
Wait, so low participation meant less violence. That's unsettling.
It is deeply unsettling. But you have to remember, 2010, that election led to conflict. 3,000 people died. 2020, over 50 deaths. So this time...
The lack of engagement maybe prevented the flashpoints?
Yeah.
Is that the implication? Political apathy as a conflict prevention tool?
It sort of looks that way inadvertently. Fewer people at the polls, especially in those tense urban centers, meant fewer opportunities for clashes. It forces a really uncomfortable question, doesn't it?
Yeah. It is a constrained, low-turnout piece, better than a participatory election that risks bloodshed.
That's the trade-off they seem to be facing. Stability versus, genuine democratic freedom. A tough one for the Ivory Coast going forward.
Definitely. Okay, let's switch gears completely. From modern politics to deep history, you mentioned re-examining power structures.
Yes, and this is just fascinating. We're going to the Yucatan Peninsula, Coba. Archaeologists there were looking at this enormous carved monument called Foundation Rock. It's huge, 111 square feet.
Okay, massive. And they were decoding the hieroglyphs.
Painstakingly, yes. And they figured out that a major assumption about the city's founding, based on that rock, was wrong.
How so?
Well, for ages, historians thought the writings referred to a male ruler, but the new decoding revealed someone totally unknown before, a queen.
A queen, ruling back then.
Ruling around 569 CE, her name was Ixchakjin.
Ixchakjin. And what does finding her tell us? Was she just like a temporary ruler or regent or
Oh,
something?
not at all. She was a major player. She actually oversaw the founding of the big monumental district there, Nohachmul, and even more importantly,
Yes.
her symbols, her iconography, linked her directly to Kawil.
Kawil, the Mayan god of lightning. And royalty.
The very same. That association gave her absolute legitimacy, but more than that, it gave her military authority equal to a Kalump.
Kalumte, wasn't that the absolute highest rank, like supreme general and king rolled into one?
Exactly. The top political and military position. So she wasn't just a figurehead, she wielded supreme power, equivalent to the most powerful male rulers.
That completely changes the picture of Mayan leadership.
It really does. And get this. She's one of at least 4 known female rulers just from Coba.
4. Okay, so this wasn't a one-off.
Doesn't look like it. It strongly suggests Mayan gender dynamics were, well, much more balanced, more egalitarian than we used to assume based on earlier interpretations, which often focused on the male figures.
It really shows how history is never fully written, doesn't it? We always have to be ready to revise.
Constantly revisiting, yeah. It's a great lesson.
Okay, so from uncovering ancient power, let's jump to a very modern, very immediate threat. You mentioned dolphins and a neurotoxin risk.
Yes, and this is where that theme of environmental neglect having hidden costs really comes into play. Dolphins, you see, they're what scientists call a sentinel species.
Meaning they act like a warning system.
Exactly. They live where we live, in coastal waters. Their health gives us a direct signal about the health of the ocean and, crucially, about potential risks to us.
And the signal coming from Florida's Indian River Lagoon? It sounds alarming.
Extremely. Dolphins found stranded there, particularly during these harmful algal blooms.
The blue-green algae stuff.
That's the one, cyanobacteria. These stranded dolphins showed brain changes. Changes consistent with early-stage Alzheimer's disease in humans.
Alzheimer's. In dolphins, how?
They tracked it down to a specific neurotoxin, 2-fil-more-diaminobutyric acid, let's just call it 2-fil-4-DAB.
Okay, 2-fil-4-DAB.
And the levels were high.
Unbelievably high. In the affected dolphins' brains, concentrations were up to 2,900 times the level found in dolphins from areas without blooms.
2,900 times. That's hard to even process. Why is this 2-fil-4-DAB so dangerous for us, potentially?
Because it's produced by those cyanobacteria during the blooms, and its chemical structure is really similar to another known neurotoxin, BMAA. The fear is that 2-fil-4-DAB gets into the marine food web.
Which we're a part of.
Right.
Yeah.
And because its structure is so similar, it might act as a kind of chemical mimic in our bodies. It could be introducing a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease in people who live near or use those coastal waters. So let me get this straight. Pollution, like nutrient runoff, sewage, it feeds these algal blooms.
Correct.
The blooms produce this 2-fil-4-DAB toxin.
Yep.
The toxin gets into the dolphins, showing Alzheimer's-like changes. And because it's structurally similar, it might pose a similar risk to humans exposed to the environment or food chain.
That is the terrifying chain reaction researchers are looking at. A direct line from pollution to potentially neurodegenerative disease risk.
And this isn't likely to get better on its own, is it, with climate change?
No, quite the opposite. Warmer waters, which we're seeing with climate change, plus the ongoing nutrient pollution. It's expected to make these harmful algal blooms more frequent and more severe, globally.
So what seems like a local pollution problem actually creates a biological hazard that could affect brain health?
Yeah.
It's profoundly disturbing.
It really is. It fundamentally changes how we should think about the cost of environmental damage. It's not just ecological, it's potentially neurological.
Which brings us, I think, grimly to our last source.
Yeah.
The immediate, unfolding danger of Hurricane Melissa.
Yes, Melissa. Currently bearing down on Jamaica. It's a Category 5.
The absolute highest on the scale. And the forecast. Is it really the strongest, potentially, they hit Jamaica in recorded history?
That's what they're saying. Strongest since records began back in 1851. But the sheer intensity isn't even the worst part.
What's worse than a Cat 5?
It's speed. Or rather, its lack of speed. It's moving incredibly slowly.
How slow?
About 3 miles per hour. That's slower than you walk.
Okay. Why is slow so much worse?
Because it means communities are battered by those extreme conditions, the high winds, the torrential rain for a much, much longer time. The duration multiplies the destructive potential exponentially.
So what kind of impacts are they bracing for in Jamaica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic?
Catastrophic flash floods, widespread landslides. The rainfall predictions are just staggering, up to 40 inches in some spots in eastern Jamaica. That's a meter of rain.
A meat.
Yeah. And in Kingston, the capital, they're expecting a storm surge up to 4 meters. That's about 13 feet. That puts critical infrastructure right on the coast, the main airport, power plants in serious jeopardy.
The Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, he's ordered evacuations for the highest risk zones.
Compulsory evacuation orders, yes, but, and here's where the human element gets really complex. Not everyone is leaving.
Why not? In the face of a Cat 5.
In some vulnerable areas, like Port Royal, residents are refusing. They're afraid if they leave their homes, their belongings will be stolen, or they don't trust the safety or conditions in the public shelters.
So they're weighing the immediate risk of the storm against fears about security and theft. That's a terrible choice to face.
It's an awful dilemma. And it puts officials in a really tough spot trying to enforce life-saving orders while understanding these very real fears.
And just to connect this back, is there a climate link being made here too?
Absolutely. The Meteorological Service of Jamaica has been quite explicit. They're saying the storm's rapid intensification, how quickly it got so strong, is directly linked to the unusually warm ocean waters right now.
Which they connect to climate change.
Which they believe is, yes, significantly related to climate change. It's that feedback loop again, isn't it? The warming environment fuels a more extreme event, which then causes more devastation and instability.
Right, so bringing all these threads together, it's quite a picture. We started with diplomacy, how political neglect, like in Beirut, leaves deep scars and makes even papal visits incredibly loaded.
And how fragile stability can be, like in the Ivory Coast, where peace came seemingly at the cost of full participation.
Then we jump back centuries to find Queen Ix-Kachén, showing how historical neglect can completely mask the reality of power, in this case, female power.
Yeah, a major ruler just waiting to be rediscovered in the texts.
And then the most direct link between neglect and danger, the environmental aspect. Pollution fueling algal blooms.
Which produce that neurotoxin, 2,4-DAB, found in dolphins with Alzheimer's-like changes, posing a potential risk to us.
And finally, the climate context, amplifying natural disasters like Hurricane Melissa to potentially unprecedented levels.
It really underscores that things we think are solid political systems, historical narratives, even our biological environment, are often more interconnected and, frankly, more fragile than we tend to assume.
It definitely makes you think.
And maybe this is the final thought to leave you, the learner, with. If something seemingly natural like an algal bloom, but which is actually made much worse by our own pollution, if that can create neurotoxins that get into the food chain and chemically mimic a devastating disease like Alzheimer's, what does that truly tell us? What are the hidden, deep costs of environmental neglect that we're not even seeing yet? This isn't just about sick dolphins. It's a threat that potentially targets the very stability of the human brain.
Wow. A threat that gets into the brain. That definitely redefines the stakes of ignoring pollution and climate change. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope weaving these stories together helps build your understanding of our complex world.
Until next time.